to what you, what you will perceive over the years as to how far I can go, how much I can do, and so on and so forth. Mixed in with all this other nonsense, that has to do with denigrating oneself, women and their issues or physical issues that are just, just piled on you, totally illogical stuff, to the point where, women will get breast augmentations and things like that because they feel that they're not enough. So anyway, it seemed like you were going to say something else before we started. Did you check the cameras on? Okay, great.
They pushed us out of the.
Out of the frame.
They switched the camera direction.
Oh, really?
In the middle of this.
Okay, well, it shows you because if we were here the whole time, and they literally, because it was working so well, they literally just switched the direction so that you couldn't even see what I was doing then, apparently.
No.
There was
okay, well, I'm glad you didn't interrupt, during it, but that's good to know. Yeah.
There was a part too where I saw on the bottom left, it said unknown bot joined the chat.
Unknown bot joined the chat.
Yeah.
Bot joined. Oh, really?
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else saw that.
I saw it.
Well, I think you got slapped.
And I figured it was that.
That's the unknown bot guy.
Yeah, well, they walked into something that they can't handle.
They obviously left.
Yeah, they walked into something they can't handle. So, there are individuals like, was it VPN or something? Because the government can tell what you're doing, use a VPN, man. I'm not using any of that stuff. Oh, what are you going to say, Nelly? What did you say?
Oh, this is Helena.
Oh,
Helena, okay.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, is it normal I also felt like something was being pulled from myself too at the same time. Is that normal?
Yeah, that's normal because it has to do with whatever might be dense in yourself, and that many containments and pushing out like that, you're also affecting what density may be still trying to, hang on, to your energy. So literally, in other words, when you're doing containment, it's always a good deal. It's always good. So I don't know if you, when you visualize pushing out from the center and out. And when you do that, you'll definitely feel at times things being pushed out of yourself. So if anything's coming out while you're containing, it's things that have to come out. Because your containment is based in light, which means it repels density. So if you feel something coming out, then that's, it has to come out, and it's good. Okay.
Wow, that's exciting.
Really, yeah, I hope that you got half of the, of what I was doing, on the footage. But yeah, we've had some really weird stuff with tech where, in other words, what happened, these guys got kicked off. sForum and his mom got kicked off, off the chat. But again, they don't understand how it works. But it has to do with them not wanting you or not wanting him to get the confidence of the work that I'm doing. So they removed me from it, but all of you have experienced the work, so they're just ridiculous. You already know that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, had to go to the toilet twice.
Again, that has to do with purging again. You're doing this much, and I don't know if I've ever had anyone do that many, containments.
473.
Yeah, 473 combined containments.
Yeah.
We've created 473 hours of protection, which means that protection is around everyone.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So I believe we will be doing some of these exercises in the future, but this is the first one, and I consider it to be a success. Yeah.
I really like this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it gives you a sense of where your energy is, Yeah. And more.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying I like it. I like it too. It gave me a sense of how much I have grown since I started working with you. Like this would have been weird, like a year plus ago. Like I wouldn't have even gotten it. But now,
Yeah, I know.
I
Thought it's a curiosity. What the heck is he talking about? But but once you experience it, you understand it. You understand that it works. You understand that it changes how you feel about yourself. It changes your life. It really does. So excellent. I thank you everyone for agreeing to participate in this. You really got something even more than those who weren't able to make it. So it's like you moved up another level, another notch. Okay.
All right.
All right. I know I had talked, I guess, during the last Ask the Chief forum, and was talking about nations people stories. Some people call them, American Indians, and which I don't like to use that, but I call them nations people. And deciphering some of the stories of the nations people. We have one particular one that we liked that I was able to decipher. We're going to use some muscle testing also, just to verify whether I'm on point with my interpretations of the story. So Ms. A is going to read the story, and then we're going to go back and I'm going to break it down and using muscle testing. Okay.
So, like Chief said, the stories of the nation's people are written in code so that density wouldn't just get rid of the story entirely. So the story's title.
Well, actually, before
Yes.
you get started, also just to let you know, when they're interpreted in English,
That too.
means that someone's interpreting it in a manner that's not accurate. They may get the gist of the story, but they may, whoever it is, and unfortunately, most of the stories that we found online are Westerners, not nations people who have translated these. So so that's why they really need to be translated and interpreted in a much deeper way. So I have to look at it on a different level, on the etheric level. And on the etheric level, I get the information from those who know that the associates who are out there, who go by a lot of different names, who will assist in the accuracy of the story. Since everything is recorded, and I'm not talking about the Akashic Records type of deal. Akashic Records is like a pamphlet of memory compared to the actual record, universal record of what goes on in the whole universe. So that's where we're going. That's where I'm actually getting the information from and the verification. I'll sense things myself because my connection to the all, I can sense things and information comes in, but for verification for those who are observing tends to actually strike a little deeper and I guess make more of an impact. So, okay, with that said.
All right. So the title is Mishosha, or the Enchanted Sugar Maple. And it is supposed to be by the Chippewa people. Very, very long ago, before there were so many people as there are now, two brothers were lost in a wide forest. They wandered on and on, not knowing where to go. And the older brother often carried his little brother when the child grew too tired to walk. Sometimes they gathered wild fruit, and sometimes they shot birds and roasted them. Day after day, they plunged deeper into the forest. And night after night, they slept in the branches. At last, they saw an opening through the trees, and soon they were delighted to find themselves on the shore of a beautiful lake. The older brother wandered about, picking the pips from the wild rose bushes, while the little brother sat on the beach and amused himself by shooting arrows into the sand. One of the arrows happened to fall into the lake, and when the older brother saw it floating away, he sprang into the water to get it, for he had only a few arrows left. The waves carried the arrow far from land, and the young man swam after it. But just as he was about to grasp it, a canoe approached him, as swift as lightning. In it was an old man who leaned over the side and seized the swimming young man. He dragged him into the canoe, which darted away across the lake. The little brother on the beach fell on his knees and cried, and stretched out his hands, while the young man begged the old man with tears, "Oh, my grandfather, pray take my little brother too. Do not leave him alone to die of grief and hunger." But the old man only laughed a wicked laugh and struck the canoe a blow, and it sped even more quickly over the water. Soon they approached an island in the center of the lake. It was an enchanted island, the abode of the old man, who was named Mishosha, the evil magician. There he lived with his 2 daughters, and though he was the terror of all men, his daughters were lovely and gentle. He led the youth to his lodge where his daughters were seated. "Rise up, my child," he said to the older daughter. "I have brought you a handsome husband." But the maiden drooped her lovely head and said never a word. She and her sister rose up and cooked the supper. After they had all eaten, the young man lay down in a corner of the lodge to sleep. But soon he heard the 2 maidens whispering together while their father was asleep. "Alas," said the older daughter, "our father has brought this young stranger not to be my husband, but to kill him most cruelly. How long must we see such wickedness and do nothing?" And when the young man heard the older maiden speak this way, he crept to her side. He told her how Mishosha had seized him and left his little brother to die of grief and hunger. The maiden wept to hear this and begged him to stand up and go quickly. She said, "Take our father's magic canoe, put food in it and step in and give it a blow. It will carry you to your little brother. Only return here before the sun rises and our father wakes." So the young man rose up and hastened and hurried and loaded the canoe with food. Then he stepped in and gave it a blow. Right away it sped swiftly over the waves. In a short time he drew near the beach, and there lay the little brother who had cried himself to sleep. The young man gave the child food and told him to wait in patience, for soon he hoped to overcome the evil magician. Then he would return to his little brother, never to leave him again. So the child was comforted, and the young man stepped into the canoe, gave it a blow, and it sped like lightning back to the enchanted island. When the sun rose up, Mishosha awakened and said to the young man, "Come, my son, I want you to go with me to gather gulls' eggs. I know an island where there are many." So the young man, not knowing how to refuse, stepped into the canoe with the old man, who gave it a blow, and in an instant they were at the island. They found the shore covered with gulls' eggs, while a flock of gulls hung like a cloud over the island. "Go, my son," said Mishosha, "and gather the eggs for me." The young man obeyed, but no sooner had he stepped ashore than Mishosha pushed the canoe far from land. "Listen, you gulls," cried the evil Mishosha. "You have long expected a gift from me. I now give you this young man. Fly down and devour him." Then striking his canoe, Mishosha darted away, laughing his wicked laugh. Immediately the gulls, like a cloud, descended, shrieking and enveloping the young man with their wings. But he seized his knife and severed the neck of the first bird he could grasp. He hung its skin and feathers on its breast and cried out, "Thus will I treat every bird that injures me. It is not for you, O gulls, to eat human flesh, nor is it in the power of that wicked magician to give me to you. Take me at once on your backs and carry me to his lodge." The gulls obeyed, and they drew close together so that the young man rested on their outstretched wings. Even before Mishosha could reach his home, they carried the young man quickly to the lodge on the enchanted island. There they set him down and flew away. The daughters were surprised and delighted to see the young man, but when Mishosha entered, he looked at him and said never a word. When morning came, Mishosha said, "Come, my son, I will take you to an island covered with beautiful pebbles shining like silver. I wish you to gather some for me." So once more the 2 entered the canoe, and the old man gave it a blow, and they were instantly at the island. He asked the young man to go ashore, but no sooner had he done so than Mishosha pushed the canoe far from land. "Arise, king of fishes," the evil magician cried. "You have long expected a gift from me. I give you this young man. Arise and eat him." Then striking his canoe, Mishosha darted away, laughing his wicked laugh. Immediately a monstrous fish put forth his snout from the water. It was so long that it reached across the island. He opened wide his oozing jaws to seize his prey. But the young man drew his knife and cried out, "Thus will I kill you. It is not for you, O fish, to eat human flesh. Listen not to the words of the wicked one. He cannot give me to you. Take me on your back and carry me at once to his lodge." The king of fishes obeyed. He lifted his back from the water, and the young man seated himself and held on by the fins. Quickly they sped through the waves, and even before Mishosha could reach his home, the fish placed the young man on the shore of the enchanted island and swam away. The daughters were surprised and delighted to see the young man, and when Mishosha entered, he looked at him and said to himself, "What kind of man is this whose power is so great? I must destroy him tomorrow." When the morning was come, Mishosha said, "Come, my son, I wish you to get some young eagles for me. I know an island where they dwell." So again the 2 entered the canoe, and the old man gave it a blow, and instantly they were at the island. This time he stepped out of the canoe and led the young man to a tall pine tree. And in the topmost branches were the eagles' nests. Now, my son, said Mishosha, climb up the tree and bring down the young birds to me. The young man obeyed, climbing slowly until he reached the nest. Tree, tree, cried the evil one, stretch yourself towards the clouds and grow taller and taller. And immediately the top of the pine tree stretched itself and shot upward into the air, carrying the young man with it. Listen, O eagles, then cried the old man, you have long expected a gift from me. I give you this youth. Tear out his eyes. Then, entering his canoe, Mishosha gave it a blow, and as he darted away, he laughed his wicked laugh. The eagles, uttering a savage scream, circled around the young man, trying to tear out his eyes with their beaks and claws. But with his knife, he cut off the head of the first bird that attacked him. Thus will I do, cried he, to every bird that injures me. It is not for you, O ravenous eagles, to eat human flesh, nor can Mishosha give me to you. Carry me back at once to his lodge. The eagles obeyed. They clustered around him, forming a seat with their backs. Then they flew with him towards the enchanted island. As they crossed the lake, they passed over Mishosha, lying asleep in the bottom of his swiftly moving canoe. So they reached the enchanted island first, and placing the young man on the shore, flew away. The daughters received him with joy, and when Mishosha entered, he looked at him and thought to himself, alas, who is this whose power is so much greater than mine? I cannot destroy him. Now when the morning was come, the young man said to Mishosha, my grandfather, I have gone on perilous errands with you. Today I must ask you to go with me. I wish to try my skill in hunting. I know an island where there is plenty of game. The old man consented, for he thought in his heart, I will destroy him while hunting. So together they entered the canoe, and the young man gave it a blow, and they were instantly at the island. They spent the day hunting, and when the night came on, they set up a lodge of branches in the woods. Soon Mishosha was in deep slumber, and the young man arose. Now the feet and legs were the only parts of Mishosha's body that were not guarded by evil spirits. So the young man took one of the magician's leggings and one of his moccasins and threw them in the fire. Soon they were consumed by the flames. Then the young man lay down and slept. And while he dreamed, a great storm arose over the island. A piercing, icy wind began to blow, and sleet and snow covered the ground and bushes. And when they both woke up in the morning, the deep snow was everywhere, and the cold wind was blowing. And the young man got up and called Mishosha to go hunting. But the old man could not find his legging and his moccasin. With despair in his heart, Mishosha was forced to follow the young man, and he stumbled and crept through the snow that clutched his bare leg and like an icy hand. Often the young man turned his head to see if Mishosha was following. He saw him falter, almost benumbed with the cold, but still he followed. Onward they went, hour after hour, through drifts and across icy-bound pools. At length they were stepped from the woods out upon the sandy shore. The young man then saw Mishosha standing still on the shore, for Mishosha could go no farther. The old man's leg grew stiff and fixed to the ground, but still he kept stretching out his arms and swinging his body to and fro. Every moment a numbness crept through Mishosha's limbs. His feet became roots in the earth, his legs grew together and were covered with bark. The feathers on his head turned to leaves and his arms to branches. And he was no longer Mishosha the magician, but a tall and stiff tree, leaning towards the water. Then the youth rejoiced and sprang into the magic canoe. He gave it a blow, and soon it was at the enchanted island. He told the daughters what had happened, and they were happy to be rid of their wicked father. They all entered the canoe, and swiftly it darted to the beach, where the little brother was waiting. And then the older daughter married the young man, and the four lived happily together in the forest.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to start deciphering and translating it. And I'm going to, in other words, throughout this whole thing, I'm going to be using applied kinesiology, muscle testing. Now, as I picked up before, that this is a record of something that happened, but the way that it's recorded is incorrect. Yes. So when it came to the beginning where the young man and his younger brother were lost, I get that is not true. They were, and also I get there was no younger brother. Is that correct? There's no younger brother. So they don't like this, in other words, having their handiwork dismantled. Screen. In actuality, the young man would be considered an ancient who was searching for the young women. Now, with a number of the nation's people's stories, as I was doing research about a month ago, we would get the number 7 a lot of times. The number 7 brothers, 7 sisters, and so on. And so with these 2 women that were supposed to be the granddaughters of the old man, they were never the granddaughters, they were the captive of the dense entity. But I think I asked if the actual real number was 7 of these particular individuals, and I got a yes for that. So again, this is how far off track the records of the stories are when they get deciphered, into English. And again, it has to do with whose interpretation and who's deciphering. So if you got something that's someone who are very connected to the DIN system, they're always going to lie. They'll take a story and just make it very confusing. And I think when I mentioned in one of the other forums that I was very, very interested in the nation's people stories. There's that genetics in the background of both my parents' families, the Cherokee and Algonquian people. So I was just curious about that, as well as I was very, very curious about stories and things that came from Africa as well. But also, I was just interested in a lot of different stories. I mean, Asia just fascinated me too with a lot of those stories as well. But with this one, they intentionally recorded it in a way to just make it confusing. Just really, really make it confusing. So when and also why would this guy, if the young women told him he could take the guy's canoe, which I deciphered as literally like a shuttlecraft. Like something that was space age shuttlecraft that can move like lightning, because obviously canoes don't move like lightning. If you have to paddle these, this guy, he taps it and then it takes off, and it reaches these locations in a short period of time. Logic, when I would hear a story like this as a kid, okay, so she says, you can take his craft, go back, give your brother some food. If they weren't searching for the Shosha, why would he come back? I'd take that craft and I'd get out of there if that was the case. If I didn't have a mission. So, take the craft, give your brother food, then come back. I mean, this dude apparently, if his canoe was, must have been so intense that it could go over land, but they never said anything like that. So that didn't make any sense to me, when I was a kid and listening to stories like that. So the reality of the matter, as we got an affirmative on, he was by himself and he was seeking and searching for these ancients who have been captured by these densities. Now, was Mishosha by himself, capturing these women who are ancients themselves? No, there were others that were involved in it as well. Well, those versus it's like different little communities where the goals are part of that capturing. Kind of like, yeah, kind of. The fish, yeah. So they're all literally, it had to do with an invasion of the Earth, Gaia Earth. And this is a story that has to do with the earlier period where density came in and took over Gaia. And there was still all this activity going on having to do with ancients who were stuck here when these guys came in. And some certain things that happened to them where they were subdued and captured. So what he did is me, sorry, everybody knows. Wow. Okay. So again, he was able to find these young women by allowing himself to be captured and then taken to this particular place of this island. With with that also, the mission was to literally seek out these different groups of density as well. So when the sorcerer comes, gets him up in the morning, takes him to the island to gather eggs, gull eggs, which is basically, other entities, whether they were gulls, probably not. Nah, it was just, another, like, I forgot what you call it when you, you replace a certain character with, something else. In other words, they were these humanoid type of consciousness. They weren't, gulls were a humanoid type of consciousness. And the whole idea of bringing someone who's shown like him as an ancient, a lot of energy, is to consume his energy. So it wasn't a lie when he said to eat this person. And what happened is that this young man, who he did not assume to be, I guess, an ancient, but someone with a lot of energy, was able to take one of the gulls, make his point. I think slit his throat, killed it or whatever, and then threw it around his neck, and then threatened the others. Well, one of the things he said is that it had to do with you're meant to eat human flesh. Now, really, what it meant is that consciousness is not meant to eat consciousness. And that's a verification of that. So, in other words, when I call these densities, I call them consciousness cannibals. That's literally what these entities are, consciousness cannibals. Now, Neshosha has some kind of deal to deliver essence or to certain densities. So I would say that there would be warlords or so on and so forth, these different groups that set up when they would invade, and they set up in these different areas. Is that correct? Well, yes, we got a correction on that, correct on that. So he, with, I guess, the support, they have their little support team, but somebody has to pay and do whatever, I have to deliver a certain amount of essence in order to, secure these guys' support, even as a dense entity. So he takes the young man to the island, the goals, attempt to attack, find out he's too strong for it. Because light consciousness is always stronger than dense consciousness. So he, I don't know if that's true, whether he convinced them to take him back, that he convinced them to take him back to the island. It's going down kind of slow. Then I'm getting that that's not really true. That, however, he ended up back at the island. He ended up back at the island. He goes back at the island, and not saying a word as to what he did to end up coming back unscathed or alive. It's like giving up ropes and things of that sort. So in other words, when I threaten density in my work, there are a lot of them will roll over, and they'll start wanting to make deals, and they'll give up information, or they give up what I call ropes. That is like a ball of information that tells you everything that they know about what's going on. And this is literally what I feel has happened with with this situation. He was too strong for them, and the only thing they could do to try to survive was to give him the information that he desired. And so, however, he ended up back at Neshosha's camp, where the imprisoned ancients were, these young women. Neshosha comes through, and I guess the guy, maybe the young man, playing stupid or something, because again, if I didn't have a mission, why would I go back to the guy who tried to, feed me to the gulls? He goes back. He says, "Okay, wow, this guy's, got a little juice there. I don't know how he survived these guys. Nobody survived these guys. Okay, I'm gonna take you to this island and this humongous fish or whatever, which is a symbol for something else, just another clutch of dense entities, who are supposedly stronger, I guess, than the previous ones. He takes him to that particular location. Again, the thing where he, gets him out of the boat, like the young man is an idiot, like he doesn't know what the guy's, MO is. He gets him out of the boat. He's gonna, he pushes the boat up like I can't run and jump in the boat, and then he sends me over here, and I go like I'm a dumbass, just go walking off in the direction that this guy tells me to. And then, of course, he has his wicked laugh, which I thought you were going to do your wicked laugh.
I don't do
But
good
anyway, so he does his wicked laugh, and then jumps in the boat, in the canoe, and he zips off again, which basically is shuttlecraft. He jumps in the shuttlecraft, zips off again. So the kid, the young man, again, is a formidable opponent because he is a strong light being, pretending to not be a strong light being. And literally, whatever the threat, because I'm sitting there, I don't know what size knife he had, that a humongous fish would just go, oh, I will kill you, it's like me with a little, little butter knife or something, threatening an elephant or something. So that part has, in other words, it was weird again. I was like, that doesn't really make any sense. But read between the lines, again, it's something else that came to eat him and devour his essence. And he said the same thing to this particular creature too. Do you remember what it is exactly? Because I think I kind of.
You do not have, you should not eat the flesh of men, and Mishosha has no right to give me to you.
Yes, you should not eat the flesh of, again, consciousness. Here's density. Density puts man in front of everything. Human, mankind, blah, 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 blah. That's all Union shit. So literally, you should not eat the flesh of other consciousness. You should not devour the energy of other consciousness. You should not devour one another. And there's no other consciousness in the universe who has the right to offer you up as food to other consciousness. That has the right to control or own other consciousness. So he literally, what he does, he blows their minds. They're afraid of him. He gets his information from them, and he goes back again to the camp of Mishosha. And so Mishosha comes in and he says, whoa, what's up with this guy, man? I got to pull out the heavy guns. So, but in his mind, is this guy retarded or something? Why does he keep going with me to places? Or am I retarded for keeping, taking him places? Or maybe because he showed up, I got to get rid of this guy. He won't go away. It's like a bad penny all of a sudden. So he takes him to he talks about the eagles, and the eagle's nest. It wasn't he wanted to, he was talking about eating the young eagles or something of that sort. But anyway, he takes him, I think, it had to do with, I don't know, eagles. Collecting the baby eagles, or whatever the deal. So under the guise of supposedly collecting the baby eagles, he takes him to this location where Mishosha supposedly has to climb this tree. One of the things I've noticed in a lot of the Nation people folklore are trees that grow. You climb the tree and it just takes off. And from the story, it said that the tree shot up into the air. What that literally was just an analogy for, him being taken into a craft. So the young man was taken to a place and they pulled him into this craft and took him to their main craft. Where, he has no escape now and so on and so forth. We got you. We're going to, squeeze all the essence out of you. Again, the young man is an ancient who they don't perceive to be an ancient, and he literally overwhelms them as well. And then he's returned quickly back to the planet. He said before he could literally do, in other words, get rid of all of them or delete all of them, they, beam him down, Scotty, back onto the planet. And so he's back on the planet, and he finds his way back to the old man, his mission. And so the last part of the story gets a little weird with the bit of him saying, now you're going to go and hang out with me while I practice my hunting. Why would this old man agree to that when he knows this kid's dangerous? So that part of the story, I think, is really, really muddled. They say, okay, I should just, in other words, tear it apart. All right. But that one's really hard because, again, my level 1 logic comes in that the old man may have felt that there was some way that he could probably get the best of this young man who was an ancient. So they agreed to go and do this thing, go to this location. And so he knows that the old man has plans up his sleeve, and he's trying to figure out how I'm going to get rid of this guy. Because every time I try to get rid of him, he comes back to my place. He doesn't take off and leave. Because after a certain point, I think that Mishosha would have preferred that the guy took to his heels and ran away. But instead of doing that, he came back because his mission was to release these other ancients. So Mishosha is running around with this guy. Also, the other dense ones out there, in the ships, are represented by the eagles, the fish, and the gulls, are really not too happy with Mishosha. And part of Mishosha's deal is also to receive essence, a certain amount of essence for what he gives to them. What happened, it was a bust. They're not getting anything from this kid. If anything, they're just getting a headache from this guy. Yeah, basically, butt looking also. And so, something about, I think when they're talking about the leggings and the shoe, that was the only part of Mishosha that wasn't protected by dense or negative energies. Dense entities or evil spirits, I think they call it, evil spirits. This is the first time they started introducing something else into Mishosha's sphere. He had a certain support. This guy knocked a hole in the support by literally going to these places and kicking butt in these different locations. So Mishosha's falling out of favor with the density. Therefore, there's an opening in whatever the protection he might have had. So they're walking around and all of that. I think it's just a lot of fluff, following them around. That's fluff. They said not fluff. They said kind of fluff. But anyway, in the end, Mishosha's following him around. And as he's following him around, he's losing energy. He no longer has the support of the other densities. So these densities will feed each other energy to keep each other going. If they don't feed, they turn into what I talked about as black leaves, which means they just become immobile and they're conscious, but unable to move, unable to do anything.
That's what they meant by the tree.
So when he turned into a tree, and I think with the leaning, there's some significance to the leaning, something, as though he was leaning to try to get essence from his fellow density, and they refused, and thus he turned into a pillar of black ooze. So after, he's been basically turned into a pillar of black ooze, which means there's no return from that. That's just a done deal, and it's an eternity of just being immobile like a statue. So with that success, he goes back and he frees the other ancients. And that's literally how it ends. And there actually, one aspect of how it ends, they're saying there's another piece that they escaped the planet afterwards. With those, I guess it was really the original number 7, they escaped the planet. While all this density is coming in and just consuming and just spreading like a disease all over the place. So that's my interpretation of that story. There are other stories that have some, I should say, some of various things having to do with when density came through and the struggle for certain ancients to, to release or to get away from Gaia, from the planet. Okay?
The story is very accurate in the way that when people get attacked, like for example, if there's two dense people attacking one another, like trying to hex someone or curse someone, they're looking for a weakness in the density that supports them, and vice versa. And if there is a weakness, then that person can tend to get sick or become susceptible to the other person cursing them.
Yeah.
And so whenever Mishosha came out of favor with the density that supported him, he had those weaknesses. He had those open holes.
Yeah.
But when Chief supports someone there and they do their containment the way that he teaches them, then that's the support begins to change. You don't have to be backed by density. Just like Chief said, you do not need to, consciousness does not need to consume other consciousness. But these consciousnesses that are attachments and dense entities, they were trained to believe that they had to consume, that it was mandatory to consume other consciousness to survive. They were kept from the truth, and then that's why they continually attack other consciousness.
Which means that they continually drift into density, which means the lesser of the chance to actually reconnect to a lighter vibration. It becomes just something that consumes light energy. And even then, they can't consume extremely strong light energy. It's like they do this number where they just kind of like have to, it's almost like eating the essence of it. There's like levels of how it works, and that's how I translate the story. I translate it from what I know happens in this level 1 realm, and how, in other words, people who are very, very dense, they fight amongst each other. But if there's a certain cause that means that they can actually benefit, they'll band together and attack another source. And, they just consume and consume and consume. They'll consume one another as well. But like, those who are basically walking around as food, you literally are just kind of like, if you're not really getting tuned in from the process that I'm teaching you, you are literally like chickens, like, if you see how chickens just kind of walk around, just, digging around, eating bugs and, and pebbles and things like that. That's where they want the mind of the food. They want you walking around, not knowing that there's all these other scenarios going on the other side. I think actually reminded me a little bit of a movie, was it one Ink, whatever? Which is kind of a hard one for people to watch because they're trying to look for a message throughout the movie, but in reality, there are little pieces of messages there. And there's a scene in that movie where there's this, I think it was a kid that was, or was it the father of the kid who was in the hospital? I can't remember now. That the kid was in the hospital and they're trying to save this kid, and the density wants the kid. And this other group who are, they're kind of related to some kind of religious kind of thing, because some of the characters are, from like the Bible or something like that. But there's these two forces that are both dense in their own way, fighting over this kid who may represent a light being that has a lot of energy or something, or a light being or an ancient that they can use to power whatever it is that they want to power, or do whatever it is that they want to do with it. And they'll fight over that, as well as they fight over turf. And I think I mentioned that before as well. Density will fight over territory. But if you're, you're not part of that density, you're just kind of like in the way, and you're just like provisions. So they'll just feed on you while they continue to do this nonsense, and also their intention to literally devour and completely destroy the planet that they are currently on, because that's part of their deal. That's a major deal, really, is to feed. Now, whether their sense of turning into black holes for not feeding is a psychological thing, I don't really think so. I think that they get to a certain point where they can't. This is like vampires or something that need blood, or zombies that need brains or something like that. And these are guys who create those types of those types of stories too.
There were recently politicians in
Yeah, there's been some pictures on the internet where certain politicians this dude, Rudolph Giuliani, and they said it was hair dye mishap, where he's got this black stuff coming down the side of his face. But also, if you check out his expression, it looks like he's in some weird kind of shock because his eyeballs are bulging out of his head also in this image also. And this guy's been, using it, I mean, when I lived in New York, he was a mayor there, and I met that guy, and I know what he is. So he literally was, oozing black stuff. That wasn't hair dye. When we started muscle testing on that, I said, I know it's not hair dye. Muscle testing said, no, that's not hair dye. That's literally like black ooze. What's going on right now with a certain vibration of dense entities on the planet. And anyway, with that, you have a lot of what some call shapeshifters, a lot of dense entities in these positions of influence, like politics and so on and so forth, and as well as in show business. So I think that it lasts alarm and all, but yeah, if any of you have any questions, we'll go longer for if anyone has any questions or need any clarification, even like from the stories, if something you're not really sure about, if you have any questions on anything that's happened during this forum, just feel free to ask now, or we'll just close it out.
I have one question. I don't know if it's really that important, but is my shishu still black ooze, or has it been deleted?
Well, my future, in a sense, he has been deleted, but it's literally like taking a cord of wood and throwing it into the furnace. Because he's never able to move after that point.
Okay.
Yeah, there are certain monoliths and things that are in certain areas, in like the States, in Europe, in Africa, in these places that have odd shapes that seem like they look like people. So again, we're getting a reaction from that. So, just keep that in mind, but, good question though, good question. So I think with that, unless someone else has something to ask, we're just gonna wrap it up.
What was the name of the story?
Oh, the name of the story again?
It's called Mishosha. Mishosha and the Enchanted Maple Tree.
Yeah, you can also maybe post it on.
I can post it on the website.
On the website or even on the Facebook page or something.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. So NSTHA, we'll post it or have the sports teams post it. Mm-hmm. So, okay, great. This is really a great forum. Again, I appreciate everyone's involvement in the first hour.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really terrific. So again, thank you all.
Thank you.
You have a great rest of your day. Or
Thank
evening.
you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.